Welcome, bored, lonely, and might I add, horny housewives to Geek Salad's Retro Movie Reviews from the Geek Salad Podcast. I'm Andy.
I'm Mike.
Ladies. And tonight we continue this year's Christmas series of Christmas movies that Mike has not seen.
Nope.
So, last week we did...
I have seen it now.
Oh, well, now you have, yeah. Last week we did A Christmas Story Christmas. This week we are doing Tim Burton's 1990 classic, Edward Scissorhands. A movie I saw on opening night.
I know you did, and you love.
This is in my top 50 of all time. It is. I don't tend to rank beyond that, but it was fantastic. I loved it. I think this is the first time that I really became obsessed with a filmmaker as well. You know, it was like the first time I was like, everything that Tim Burton was putting out, I had to be a part of. You know, followed up, a few years later with Quentin Tarantino. But now it's like, okay, well, I can see the flaws now. And with Tim Burton, I can see a lot of flaws in a lot of different things. But I am curious, Mike, overall, what are your initial thoughts of Edward Scissorhands?
Overall, I did enjoy this movie to a point.
To a point.
Yeah.
Okay.
About 40 minutes into the movie, something happens. I'm like, okay, it's an odd choice. And then it kind of carries through to the end.
Okay. What is the odd choice that you're referring to?
3 words. Anthony Michael Hall.
Oh.
Yeah.
Just him in general?
Well, like the first 40 minutes of the movie, it was like a 50s like suburban fantasy movie, and it was very charming, very charming. Anthony Michael Hall shows up in his like van with the flames painted on this. I'm like, this is no longer in the 50s. This like, feels like the 70s. This feels like he's just trying to cram 2 decades together, and it didn't quite work.
Okay, yeah.
And
I think because
I didn't think that his character at all was necessary at all. I mean, you didn't really need a villain because the entire town was slowly becoming the villain.
Well, but it was because of him and because he decided to use Edward to, you needed that. I mean, it's just, you need that person who does not fall for it. I mean...
Honestly, for me, the person that really kind of kicks the whole thing into like more of the town becoming more villainous, Joyce.
Oh, well, yeah, we'll get to Joyce in a minute. I have lots of thoughts on Joyce.
I'm sure
you
do.
Anthony Michael Hall is the weakest part in this. His character is just written as he's very one-dimensional.
Oh yeah.
In terms of teenage bully characters.
Yeah.
I feel he was a necessary thing to have in there because he is the anger and the violence that pushes Edward to have to make very hard decisions.
I feel like the movie could have come to a very similar, like pretty much that same ending, but you didn't really need him. You could have had like the whole maybe Frankenstein mob scene going on. And then, Kim comes out and says, yeah, that he's dead in there. And then they would have realized, oh yeah, we've become the monsters. And so you didn't need a physical representation of the anger.
Yeah.
It was helpful in a certain sense, but he just took me out of the movie. And and the whole, like his house with all the alarms, I'm like, this doesn't feel 50s anymore. This feels like 70s or 80s.
Right. Well, I think it was more of an aesthetic that Tim Burton was trying to recreate, but not. It wasn't supposed to take place in any specific time. The whole reasoning behind the 50s era house, the suburbs and all that.
Yeah.
And the kind of the uniformity of everything, especially that great scene where all the men are going to work and they all kind of like.
Yeah.
They pull out in unison. Edward is there to shake that kind of stuff up. Almost as if he's replacing Jim as the freak of the neighborhood now. Because he, dressed all in black, but he has special gifts, and people see him as being special, whereas Jim is just a shit who's, angry that his dad doesn't love him.
It felt very almost Pleasantville-ish.
Okay.
But not quite. Like these a foreign element comes into this very kind of 50s suburban-esque neighborhood, and things start changing for the better, maybe not always all for the better.
Yeah.
But I mean the rest of the movie I thought was very, very charming, very, very quaint. Peg is for me the MVP of the movie.
I love Diane Weiss. I think Diane Weiss is one of those actresses that can almost do no wrong. She is usually, in ensemble pieces, is usually the best thing in the entire movie. I'm sure you've never seen Bullets Over Broadway, and she is just phenomenal.
Yeah, I looked up her page on Wikipedia, and I haven't seen a whole lot that she's in, but she was so good in this one.
Oh, she's so lovable. She's in The Birdcage. She's fantastic in The Birdcage. Yeah, I loved Peg because Peg is still trying to keep the brave face throughout. And she understands that she went in with good intentions and had no idea how that was going to spiral outwards.
Right.
So there's that.
I like Alan Arkin's character. I can't remember his name.
Bill Boggs. Yeah, I like Alan Arkin too. Alan Arkin was a weird one for me because I had seen Alan Arkin in a series of movies from like the mid 60s, like the late 60s, early 70s. Catch-22 was one of those movies where it really like his delivery stands out because when an Alan Arkin role when you see it, the way he talks and all that is very much an Alan Arkin thing. And he was delightful in this. It was like the first current movie I had seen with him in there. And I gotta say, this was the first Johnny Depp movie where I bought him as a legitimate actor, because before this it was 21 Jump Street and Crybaby.
And Nightmare on Elm Street.
Oh, and Nightmare on Elm Street. Yeah, I hadn't seen Nightmare on Elm Street at that point, but you're playing your typical good-looking high school kid, and to be able to just change into this character and be virtually unrecognizable, and it's something that he's done, throughout his career, which I find very admirable. Especially, what killed me was the whole thing. I'm sure you've listened to Verbal Diorama, who just did an episode of Edward Scissorhands. I
haven't listened to that episode yet. Because I didn't watch the movie yet.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm not spoiling anything now, but Tom Cruise was approached to play Edward, and he turned it down. Now, originally, I had heard he had turned it down because he wanted Edward to get facial reconstruction surgery at the end of it so he could just show his good-looking face. Same reason why he didn't take Aladdin, because he didn't look anything like him.
And the same reason he didn't take Iron Man, because he would need a clear face.
Yeah, exactly. But here's the other thing, is that he also, and one of the reasons why he declined the role, is that they couldn't answer, how does Edward go to the bathroom?
That thought never occurred to me.
No, it doesn't. It's just weird to think what is underneath that black suit, or is that his skin? Is it just like, is he being held together? But I mean, I'm going to grab the action figure real quick, because the action figure, it's about actionless.
Yeah.
I mean, if you look at the detail on this, it really, I almost want to think that this whole thing is his body.
Yeah. Actually, when they were showing like kind of the like the robot things, and they did the flashback with he was just kind of like, he picked up like the heart cookie and he was looking at one of his old mechanoids. It kind of occurred to me, like, I wonder if that robot that he was looking at is Edward.
I think so too. I think what he did was he began working through the robot and making it into a real live boy.
That would also explain why, when you see him at the very, very end, Edward is still the same age.
Yeah. Edward can't age.
Yeah, because
he's artificial.
Yeah.
but yeah, the character in and of itself, it's very sweet. It's great because he remains shy. His dialogue does increase as the movie goes through. He becomes more comfortable with certain people, Peg, and Kim especially.
Yeah.
He usually kind of still seems timid with Bill. And then there's Joyce.
Well, hey, you know what? Also Kevin, who did this and did Honey, I Shrunk the Kid and Honey, I Blew Up the Kid and Honey, I Shrunk the Audience, and that's it.
Yep. Now, I mean, you can only stay young for so long, and there's Joyce is, man, is she an oddity. So it's fun. I mean, I've been watching this movie for 32 years now, and this viewing was the first time it occurred to me why she is the way she is, and it is readily apparent the second you meet her husband.
Yeah.
Because the second you meet her husband in his one-piece leisure jumpsuit, glad-handing, and just being a right ass, you know, just by meeting him that one time, that he has never made her come.
He may have made some other women come.
Oh, probably not. I have a feeling this dude is, he's probably out on the prowl, but he's lousy with all of them. In fact, I kind of feel that way about like all of these husbands. They're all looking for that excitement, and they get it through Edward. I have not seen the porn parody Edward Penis Hand, so I have no idea if this is something that is real movie.
I believe it, which is the sad thing.
I would I would truly believe that these women are all lonely. I mean, with the exception of Katrina Farrell's character, who I think just might be single, and Olan Jones's evangelical character.
Oh yeah, she was definitely single.
Yeah.
And in fact, I'm pretty sure she has a chastity belt on.
She may have. I haven't gone back to look at that, but the characters of the suburb are interesting. It is funny. Some of those hairstyles are just, it's just the way that they are. But I love the way that Edward approaches it. Everything is an art to him. He steps back and he does these things, and he kind of like, he works out in his head before he starts cutting. And that scene with Joyce when they're doing the dog grooming, and then she asks if he's ever cut a woman's hair before, and he puts her in the chair, and her toes up, and she is not, it's not hyperbole. She said that was the most thrilling single moment of her entire life. I believe it. I believe it in a second that is actually a true thing with that character.
Oh yeah.
But it's just the whole dynamic between Edward and the housewives is really, it's interesting.
Well, for me, like what was most telling, especially during like the cookout scene, is to pretty much everyone in the town other than the Boggs and maybe the cop, actually, Edward's just like this freak of nature that, oh, I'm fascinated in it.
Yeah.
And then as soon as they're over him, they're like, oh, I don't like him anymore.
Yeah, it's the novelty wore out the second they realize that he's in fact brandishing at least 10 razor sharp knives.
Yeah, the Boggs and honestly that cop are the only ones that really kind of treat him like a human being.
I really like that cop. I wish they'd given him more to do, but I think where they slotted him in, where he approaches Edward after he's being released from prison and saying, it's going to keep me up all night if I don't know that you're okay. And then just giving him that out. Yeah. Just go ahead, go run.
Yeah. Because he knows Edward meant no harm.
Right. Exactly. He felt bad for me. He just wants him to be out of danger.
Yeah.
So Vincent Price, this is his last film appearance. Obviously a dream for Tim Burton to get him as it was a sweet little it was a sweet little thing. He didn't have to be creepy. He didn't have to, oh, okay, the ghouls and the ravens. He was really good. Now, what I want to know is, how does someone live that long, subsisting on what I can only understand are cookies and chopped celery?
Actually, that is another thing that I'm not crazy about. I wish they just like kept all the flashbacks in the beginning. Then whenever they put in a flashback, it felt like the story kind of ground to a halt. And it's like, all right, you're telling me information that I like to know, but I kind of inferred already, and then like just put it all at the beginning, and then we could just keep the story going.
Well, what I liked about the way they did, it's the same reason why I like how they handle the flashbacks in The Godfather Part 2. They come at very specific moments in Edward's journey to the suburbs. And that last one, the fact that, he has been asked to hold Kim and he can't. And why is that? Why did he never get hands? And it's a question that I like, that they don't tell you everything up front. I like being able to find out little bits about Edward and how he handles this, and then having these thoughts back to, I mean, I don't know how the hell he thought back to Vincent Price looking at the cookie machine and his life as a vegetable chopper. But it was cute to have that in there, and it gives, just to have those little pieces there of what Edward can remember, of the kindnesses that he received. And I did like too that when we're introduced to Edward the first time, when they ask about his father, he didn't wake up. That's all we know at that point, and I felt satisfied with that. And when we got it, it was even more heartbreaking, because now we've gotten to know the character, and we've gotten to know just what a genuinely good is. We would have never gotten that had all those flashback pieces been slotted in at the beginning.
I for me, like, the story wise, especially considering that the whole thing is just a story being told by old Kim to her granddaughter. Having her like, okay, this is the beginning of Edward's story, and then we get to Peg actually coming in and finding him. I know. I felt like it would have flowed a little bit better for me.
Yeah, I had no issue with the flow here, and the fact that it was old Kim reading the story. I mean, we've seen enough riff tracks to know. Keep in mind, this story is being told right now, and then they did this, and then they did this, and then the machine went doodly 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 doo.
By the way, as soon as I saw like old Kim, I'm like, that's Winona Ryder.
Yeah. Honestly, out of everything, that was the part I could have probably done without, are the bookends. However, it does not so much like, I mean, that first one was like, it was cutesy. It was kind of like a good way of setting the story up. The second one, if for nothing else, that it sets you up for when you go back to the castle and you see him making the ice sculptures, and Danny Elfman's goddamn music in this movie is a character in and of itself. This may be Danny Elfman's best score.
It was a really good score. It was definitely unlike any of his other scores.
To that point, and even though they're all verifiably Danny Elfman.
Yeah, and the beginning of it was very Elfman, but like, especially like the snow dance, that was it felt like he was really just kind of branching out and trying new things with this.
And that snow dance, first of all, that snow dance is, if I had to rank like my favorite just individual pieces of movie score, that's way up there.
It was really, really good.
It is fantastic. The oh good Lord, but you can tell where like the score to Batman Returns came from, because a lot of it was kind of inspired by what he had done with Edward Scissorhands.
Yeah, and like, especially like, if you just look 2 years before this to Beetlejuice, this was a very different score than Beetlejuice.
Yeah.
Personally, I kind of like Beetlejuice. I like the more playful element of it.
It's more playful. That was more based on piano and fiddle.
Yeah.
This was definitely more choral.
Yeah. Oh yeah, a
You
lot
know,
of choral in this.
as M referred to it as being like part of the Tim Burton Christmas trilogy. Just like Batman Returns, the Christmas scenes look like they're shot in a snow globe. And I love that. I also love watching Bill roll out fake snow on the roof. That was cute.
Yeah, stapling it on there.
Yeah.
One thing I will say though, like the opening shot, well, not like the opening shot, but like when the camera is panning over the suburbs there.
Yeah.
I'm like, I kind of preferred it when it was Beetlejuice, because here it looks as fake as it did in Beetlejuice. In Beetlejuice, it was supposed to be fake because it was just a model. Here,
Yeah.
it looks like a model until it wasn't.
Yeah. And that's understandable. I mean, again, it's that I feel like with Tim Burton movies, it's almost like because it's part of his vision, it's like his MO to do this. We can kind of give him that leg room to be able to do stuff like that, to have things that look deliberately fake, but we're still okay with it. I mean, like the creatures in Beetlejuice.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
I
mean, for me personally, I prefer Beetlejuice over this.
Okay.
But
they are very different movies.
Very different movies. This is a very good movie. It's a very charming. I do have the occasional issues with it, but overall, this just the story of, especially Peg and Edward, and the Kim and Edward. I liked it. It didn't. It kind of came together a little bit fast for me.
It came together a little quick.
Especially since, like, at first Jim, like, he was kind of like abrasive, but he wasn't downright evil. And then it just like there's just one moment he just, now I'm evil, now I'm a villain.
Well, I think it's because he realized that he was losing Kim. He was slowly losing her because of what he did to Edward. That made her really angry because it was a shitty thing to do. But I always feel like Jim was always goading Kim because he knew that Edward was sweet on her. And that's the kind of thing. He would do those dickish things, and then when she finally does kind of realize she has feelings for him, now Jim, who is already unstable, and more than likely he was still drunk when he went up to the castle with the gun. I mean, just again, I love this movie. I think this might be my favorite Tim Burton movie. Still, 32 years later, it's gorgeous. It's a great way of turning a Frankenstein story into a fairy tale.
Yeah.
And I really appreciate that. This is nobody else could have done this movie.
Yeah, it definitely it had had very Frankenstein elements, had very Pinocchio elements. Overall, it was just like that, just kind of like that inanimate object becoming more human than the actual human characters. It was very well done.
Yeah. I wouldn't actually mind seeing, like, if anybody had ever thought about maybe not doing like a direct sequel, but doing like stop motion with like Edward's life in the castle. I mean, that could be the way I'm thinking about it is, Tim Burton has directed stop motion in the past. He's done 2 movies. Henry Selick, who is probably just does not want to work with Tim Burton again.
Really?
I think there's a lot of issues with who got what credit for Nightmare Before Christmas, because it technically is a Henry Selick film that
everyone thinks it's a Tim Burton movie.
Conceived the idea of. Yeah, he conceived the idea. He wrote the initial story and created the character designs for it. But Henry Selick did not get nearly the credit he deserves for that movie.
I mean, but if you were going to do like a stop motion, like kind of a prequel or a interstitial with Edward Scissorhands, those are really the only 2 people I could think doing it.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. Guillermo del Toro was off doing his own thing, so because he's also doing stop motion now.
Yeah.
Yeah, and because Disney owns Fox, who owns the rights to Edward Scissorhands, I'm sure that they would have somebody in house. But I think that just even if they're silent, they're just like, Edward learns how to do you see like these experiments with him doing the shrub stuff or the ice or
like maybe like even like 5-minute shorts on Disney Plus.
That's what I'm thinking. That's exactly what I'm thinking. So, hey, Bob.
You know what? After I finished watching that, I actually texted you this. It's like this movie made me really, really wish that they had done a Tim Burton Addams Family movie, because especially if you look at the animated Addams Family movie that we saw, the creepy mansion on the house,
the
little like 50s suburb, it's right there.
Well, Tim Burton was in consideration to direct the Addams Family initially. And now he's doing Wednesday. So I feel like that's kind of his Addams Family redemptive arc. I have not watched Wednesday yet. I've heard it's fantastic.
I've heard it's really very good.
But haven't watched it, so I don't know how good it is, how much of Tim Burton is in that movie, because with a couple of exceptions, a Tim Burton movie when you see it.
Yeah.
And those exceptions are that soft middle. And I will start with the Planet of the Apes.
Oh, I keep forgetting he did that because it's so awful.
Exactly. It's like the Tim Burton pastiche ended at Sleepy Hollow. We got Planet of the Apes.
What about Big Fish? Big Fish.
Big Fish feels like a Tim Burton movie, though.
And then he also did that Big Eyes.
Big Eyes. I haven't seen Big Eyes, but that doesn't feel like that would be it. And have you seen Miss Peregrine?
No, I haven't. Going by the trailers, though, it seemed Tim Burton-esque.
It's got Ava Green in it, so. Yeah. But yeah, overall, again,
the benefits of banging the director.
Oh, exactly. This is like, I think No, it's not the last movie, because Batman Returns. Before we started inserting his girlfriends into the movies. That starts at Ed Wood.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, another just...
Oh, yeah. That who... Oh, I had forgotten about Ed Wood, but Ed Wood and Beetlejuice, they are so close for me.
But they're so different.
They are very different.
You can't compare them. But we need to review Ed Wood at some point, but...
I thought we did.
I don't think we did.
Oh. You're probably right, honestly.
Okay. I know we've done Beetlejuice, but anyway, that's all I have to say.
First review, actually.
What's that?
I think that was our first review.
Beetlejuice? No, Batman was our first review.
Oh.
We did do Beetlejuice, though. But anyway, that is Edward Scissorhands. Do you have anything else you want to say about Edward Scissorhands before we wrap up?
Just kind of interesting, the fact that they had a spare hand just hanging around in the house, in the mansion.
Yeah. She's never been in there before, and she knew exactly where to go. Okay.
Like, hey, I see it. Hey, that's Edward's hand. He's got a spare one in case he gets dull. But,
yeah, I'm sure that there's a deleted scene that totally was never in consideration for being thrown into any director's cut, with Kim just like frantically, where? He never buried the body.
Actually, that's another thing. Yeah, that it's like they killed each other. Okay, let's all go home. You got a dead body sitting right here.
Yeah,
gonna take it? Just gonna leave it there. Well, apparently the father didn't care. So okay,
I'll come to claim my boy.
I like to see when the camera's kind of panning in and you see all the snow come out. You just see a skeleton laying out front.
Oh boy. Oh, we have fun. So anyway, that was Edward Scissorhands. We want to know, what are your thoughts on Edward Scissorhands? You can leave a polite comment below. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel if you haven't done so already. Give this video a big thumbs up as well. It helps us in the algorithm. Also, Mike and I host a little podcast called Geek Salad. You can check that out wherever you get your podcasts: iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Podcasts. We are there. If you are on Apple Podcast, please give us a 5-star rating, because apparently it's the only one that matters. You can do that. You can also follow us on the socials. We're on Facebook at Geek Salad Podcast. We are on Twitter, Mastodon and Hive at Geek Salad Radio. Yeah, Mastodon and Hive, they're still there. What the hell am I going to do with them?
I haven't joined Hive yet. Is it
Okay.
Is it easier to
It's
use than
slow
Mastodon?
as shit.
Oh.
So,
I'm just hoping it's less confusing than Mastodon, because Mastodon is really confusing.
Yeah. And if you're looking for any last minute Christmas gifts, check out our TeePublic store, keyword Geek Salad Podcast, where you can check out our Funkoed faces on a whole bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, next week we're going to continue with this Christmas train of movies Mike hasn't seen by moving over to 2003, and we're going to talk about the new Christmas classic, Elf.
Never
which
seen
again,
it.
not seen. It's on
Nope.
HBO Max, so if you want to join us in the conversation, watch the movie. So anyway,
It's not the biggest. A little Will Ferrell goes a very long way for me.
yeah, and I think not to give too much away now, because obviously you're going to watch the movie. This is the kind of Will Ferrell movie where it's not too much Will Ferrell, by which I mean this isn't like letting Jim Carrey off of his leash. Letting Will Ferrell off his leash is a completely different thing because he knows how to subtly play things more than Jim Carrey, who will just go big and broad on everything. But we will. I'm interested in your thoughts on that.
And to be fair, I have seen most of this movie in bits and pieces. Like I haven't even seen the ending. So
okay, so awesome. But now you're going to watch it in toto.
Yes.
Awesome. So anyway, folks, that is that. We'll see you next week. And until next time, I'm Andy.
I'm Mike.
Go forth and be nerdful. We'll talk to you.